Hello friends and welcome to our tutorial. Today we'll be talking about liquid typography. This typography technique uses various distortion and glitch effects to create an illusion of liquid, dripping, melting text. The result, expressive and bold, sometimes psychedelic text that captivates and attracts attention. In today's tutorial, we'll recreate one of the shots that's part of our Titles Pro pack. Be sure to check it out. The pack has more than 150 plus animated templates inside, which cover a variety of different themes and are made in different styles, such as minimal titles, fashion, sport, glitch, liquid of course, and many more. And now, without further ado, let's jump into After Effects and begin our tutorial. Alright guys, so here we are in After Effects and let's create a new comp. We're gonna make it 180p by 180p, 30 frames per second, 5 seconds long, and I'm gonna call it text. Let's bring up title action safe to see where the center of our comp is, and let's type in some text. Important thing here is to have the stroke and the fill enabled. So if you don't have the stroke enabled, just select your text, click here, select the color you need, and let's set the stroke width to 4 pixels. Alright, cool. Now I'm gonna call this text 1 and let's animate it. So let's bring up its properties, and in the animate tab let's select fill color opacity, and we've created an animator for the fill color. And now let's again click on the animate and select stroke color opacity. Be sure to create 2 different animators for the stroke and for the fill, because we need to animate them separately. Okay, so I'm gonna set the fill opacity to 0 and the stroke opacity to 0 as well. And in the Range Selector 2, I'm going to create a keyframe, go forwards 2 seconds, and set the start to 100%. Same thing I'm gonna do for the fill. Next thing we want to do, in the Advanced tab of the Range Selector, let's click on the Randomized Order for the fill, and let's click on the Randomized Order for the stroke. And let's set the fill, let's set the Range Selector for the fill 50%. And let's set slightly different random seed. Yeah, this looks good. Alright, now let's easy ease our keyframes. I'm gonna hit U, select my keyframes, hit F9, go to Graph Editor and ease out my keyframes. So we're having this kind of an animation. Alright, now let's duplicate our text, bring it up, bring it here. I'm gonna center everything. I'm gonna hide the title action safe, and I'm gonna hit UU for the text too, and I'm gonna set a different random seed for the fill and a different random seed for the stroke. So everything is animated randomly and differently. Okay. Now let's create another comp. We'll also make it 180p by 180p, 30 frames per second, 5 seconds long, and I'm gonna call this liquid. Let's bring up our text comp inside the liquid comp, and in the effects and presets, let's type in CC scale wipe and apply it to our text. Let's set the stretch to 10. The direction will be 0, and the center of the direction, of course it depends on your text, on your font, on the size of it, but the thing is, let's set it so it will look like this. Let's duplicate the scale wipe and reverse the direction. We're gonna set it to 180 degrees, and let's adjust our center like this. Alright, next thing, let's add CC smear. Now let's set from in about the center of our text and to somewhere here. Oh no. Let's reverse it. Let's set the from somewhere here and to somewhere here, and reach will be minus 100. Oh, that's too much. Minus 100, and the radius like this. Let's duplicate it and adjust it like this. And the same thing we need to do for the lower part of our text. Let's duplicate the smear and let's duplicate it again. Cool. Now let's bring up the liquefy effect, and this is where the magic happens. So basically the liquefy is a mesh warp, but slightly advanced. Those of you who are using Photoshop know this effect for sure. Okay, so in the warp tool options, let's set the brush size to 200 and brush pressure to 100. And now let's adjust our text. Of course, your results may differ, so play with this as you wish. Yeah, something like that, pretty fine. And I'm gonna twist everything a little bit. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. All right. So next thing we want to do, I'm gonna duplicate my text. I'm gonna hide the effects so they won't distract me. And now we're gonna create the chromatic aberration, because as we can see, the effect is pretty colorful. So we need to separate the RGB channels of our text, and this is what we're doing right now. So I'm gonna call the upper text red, the middle text green, and the bottom text blue. Also be sure to set the blending modes to all of the 3 layers to add. Now let's bring up the shift channels in the effect and presets and apply it to all of our 3 texts. Alright. And in the red layer, I'll set take green full off, take blue full off. In the green layer, I'm gonna set take red full off, take blue full off. So I'm leaving only the green channel. If I'm gonna solo this, we'll see that only the green color passes through. And the same thing I'm gonna do for the blue channel. Okay, now in the red layer, in the liquefy effect, distortion mesh offset, let's set it to minus 30, maybe even minus 60. The same thing we're gonna do for the green channel, but we're gonna offset the distortion 60 pixels in the positive direction. Okay, cool. And the next thing we can do, we can distort our meshes separately. So we're gonna have even more psychedelic effects. Okay, so I'm gonna distort my red channel like this. And I'm gonna distort my green channel. I think that's too much. This is good. You can play with this and experiment. The results are always very interesting. Well, I think I'm fine with mine. Alright. And the last thing I want to do, I'm going to create an adjustment layer, and I'm gonna call it effects. I'm gonna bring in the fast box blur. I'm gonna set the blur radius to 1 and the iterations to 1. And now I'm gonna bring up the levels. And I'm going to set the levels like this. And now I'm gonna bring up the noise and add a bit of noise. 10% is pretty fine. And we're starting to see these cool grains in the light areas. Okay. And the last thing I want to do, I'm going to bring up the wave warp. Let's set the wave warp to 0 degrees. And let's bring up the wave width and the wave height. And there we are. We've made this cool looking liquid dripping text. So I gotta warn you guys, this effect is pretty heavy on the render, so yeah. Now let's finish the shot. I'm going to create a new comp. I'm gonna make it full HD. I'm gonna bring in my liquid in here. And what I want to do, I want to add some textures to this. So I'm gonna use Easy Edit Assets tool to find my textures. This is a free tool from Easy Edit. You can download it at our site. It gives you the possibility to search and download GIFs, images, and even videos from the popular free resources directly to After Effects, and this is very cool. So as you can see, I can select the media type, GIFs, images, videos. I can select the resource that I want to download my textures from. I'm gonna select the Unsplash and I'm gonna type texture. And now I'm going to search for something that I like. Okay, so as you can see, the assets has finished downloading my textures and it added them directly to my project. So I'm gonna delete this and I'm gonna use this old iron texture. I'm gonna scale it like this, and I'm gonna use this texture of some kind of smudges, or I don't know, something like that. I'm gonna scale it also. Now what I want to do, I'm gonna hit levels in the effects and presets menu. I'm gonna add it to both of my textures. And to the second texture, I'm gonna add black and white. Okay, and I'm gonna bring up the levels like this. And in the upper texture, I'm gonna set the opacity to be pretty low. Okay guys, that's it for today's tutorial. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe to our channel, and see you in the next videos.